everyone, today in this video I'm going to be checking out the KOORUI P01 24-inch computer monitor. I did receive this sample directly from KOORUI, but I want you to know that any opinion expressed in this video is strictly my own. That being said, if you're interested in the KOORUI P01, the link to it will be in the video description. Take a look at the retail box and packaging. Everything's simple and straightforward, following your typical KOORUI branding here. This monitor, 1920 by 1080p, 100 hertz for the refresh rate. We do have built-in speakers, and it's VESA mount compatible at 75 by 75 millimeters. It also comes with a 3-year warranty. Now let's go ahead, let's open it up and see what's inside. Here are all the contents. First up, we have our product literature consisting of our user guide and manual, walking us through more information about the brand, eye health notes, what's included in the box, how to use the menu, troubleshooting section, menu functions here, so they walk you through a bunch of different key features and what it all means. Wall mount kit specs for the VESA 75 by 75 mount. Then that information repeats itself in multiple languages. We also have their customer service and contact information directly on the back of the manual. Next, you'll find a quick start guide here. Nothing on the back side. We have our 3 pieces of the stand. Power adapter, one included HDMI cable, and lastly we have the monitor itself. Let's look at this in more detail. Here's the monitor up close from the back. We got the KOORUI logo and branding. You'll see just a solid black cover here with some ventilation up at the top. Got a seam down here at the bottom. VESA mount, Kensington security lock, stand installation, as well as some additional product tech specs. We have all of our ports on this side here. Let's tilt that up. You'll see we have HDMI, VGA audio, and our DC plug. Looking at it from the very bottom, we got our speaker grills here. We have all of our 5 menu button and control options, indicator light there. Let's give you that side profile. Take a look. Got a nice rounded curved back there. Take a look at it from the top down, same thing. And then looking at it from the very front, you'll notice on our display, 24 inches. It's going to be measured diagonally. We have a near bezel-less design up at the top in the 2 sides, but the pixels don't go all the way to the very edge. If you can look at my fingertip right here, that's where the pixels stop. Then you have a little bit of black separation there. KOORUI's logo and branding on the front. Try to show you that up from the top. Maybe you can get a better feel for where the screen actually ends there. But near bezel-less on the sides and the top. Now let's go ahead, let's get this thing set up and let's try it out. All right, so we got the monitor set up, plugged in and connected to our computer. I wanted to point out with the included stand, it's very, very simple. It's gonna be at a fixed height. There's no height adjustments. There's no swivel, rotation, or anything else. The only thing you're able to do with this monitor is tilt it back. So with the included stand, that's all you're gonna get out of it. It's at that fixed height, and there's not much you're gonna be able to do about it unless you want to put some books under it, things like that. The good news is though, they do give you the option to bring your own stand, mount it to the wall, whatever you want. Take advantage of the VESA port on the back. Now let's talk about the display settings. We are getting what's advertised, 1920 1080p Full HD at up to 100 hertz, and that is connected via HDMI in case you're wondering. Now let's go over the menu settings. You can pull up the menu by pressing the menu button, and now we can go into all the different settings that we have right here. So first up, we're in our display settings. You'll see the options that we have there. Let's go back, make our way to the next item that we have. So you'll see that's going to be our languages. We'll enter in a lot of different language choices. Moving right along, our game settings here, overdrive and FreeSync. Then you'll see our different mode selections. So what image option do you want? That'll just vary depending on the type of content you're consuming. Then you'll see we have our color settings next. Here we go. Cool, standard, warm, or user settings. Then we can adjust our aspect ratio, 4:3, 16:9, or auto. Then we have our input selection options. So again, we're going to have our VGA or HDMI. And then you'll see we have our other settings here. So we got power, gamma, and volume. Adjust is grayed out. And then we have our reset options. We can choose to reset the monitor, or we can exit. So simple menu, really easy to navigate with just your dedicated buttons. and it's nice they're on the side here, so again, easy to access and get exactly where you need to be. So I wanted to spend another minute diving into our image options here. Currently we have standard selected. Now let's show you what movie looks like, followed by FPS, RTS, and iSaver. So not going to notice much of a change between the three. So we're back to standard. Here's movie again. I think it lightens it a smidge. FPS darkens it a little bit again. So, and then we have our RTS, hard to tell, and then our iSaver, that's the most noticeable change. So compared to some other presets, even from within KOORUI's own lineup, they usually have more drastic changes. These ones are going to be very subtle. Moving right along, we're taking a look at the UFO frame rate test here. This is great to help us understand why 100 Hertz makes a difference compared to 60 or 75 Hertz, and why, if your system can allow it and your budget can afford it, the higher the better if you're a gamer out there, because you'll see as we double every time, the footage is substantially improving, even at that 50 FPS right here, which usually you'll get 60 or 75 Hertz at a minimum today. It's much more bearable. Wouldn't say it's great whatsoever, but you'll notice how smooth it is now at 100 FPS at our 100 Hertz refresh rate. So it's kind of a delicate balance of, can your system or console power it, and then can your monitor even display it? So in this case, it's great to see 100 FPS. If you do want to use this for not just productivity, but some gaming, I think you'll enjoy the performance out of a monitor like this. But that's why you're seeing 144 Hertz, 165 Hertz, 240 Hertz. The higher, the better for gamers out there if your system can match it. Now we can talk about ghosting here. You'll see, well, hopefully you can, but we do have a camera pointed at a display, so keep in mind what you're seeing here quality-wise is not going to reflect how things actually look in person if you were here with me looking at this monitor with your own eyes. But in this case, very noticeable to see ghosting here, and that UFO isn't very clear at all, so we're just seeing a lot of blurring and smearing as it's going across the display. So honestly, I'd say as expected for this particular monitor, but just keep that in mind. This is more geared towards productivity. And I'd say if you're a casual gamer, probably not that big of a deal, but still very noticeable. So if you're sensitive to that, well, you've been warned here per se. But anyways, 5 millisecond response time too. So I think it kind of comes with the territory for what we're seeing spec-wise on this particular display. Now we have a black screen pulled up here. We turned off all the studio lights to see if we could notice any sort of backlight bleeding. And in this case, looking at the dark screen in the dark, no noticeable backlight bleed, so that's great to see. The last few KOORUI monitors I've reviewed, when they're not the ultra-wide curved monitors, they're showing a nice uniformity, I guess, in their manufacturing, because we haven't noticed any coming from them in our recent batches. So that's always nice to see. Keep in mind, I guess your results could vary because it could be a panel-to-panel thing, but it's nice to see out of a couple different SKUs we've had recently that they're all coming back like this, where we're not seeing any sort of bleeding. Now let's talk about color accuracy. So KOORUI claims 99% sRGB. Let's see what we were able to get with our own findings. Now keep in mind, this is just exactly that, my own findings. I don't have access to factory calibration tools or anything like that. We're just using display cal and a colorimeter. So what did we find? Well, we got close, but we didn't get that exact number. Our findings show 97.5% sRGB as opposed to the 99% sRGB, and our volume being 105%. In regards to our Adobe RGB, we're showing 71% coverage and 72.3% volume. And lastly, DCI-P3, 74.3% coverage and 74.4% for our volume. Now in regards to our Delta E values, first up looking at Delta E94, you're seeing that we got an average value of 0.25, which is well below the recommended range of 1, and our max was 0.71, which is well below the recommended range of 3. And Delta E2000 follows a similar pattern here. You're seeing our average of 0.25, well below 1. And our max value being 0.86, well below 3. Now for a simpler test, let's just browse the web and see how everything looks. So first up, we have YouTube pulled up. We're browsing the trending and most popular videos right here. Everything looks nice, super responsive. So if you want to consume a bunch of content, watch your favorite streamers, videos, that sort of thing, not gonna have any issues. Everything's clear and crisp. Same can be said if you want to use this monitor. Maybe you want to read a lot of news, catch up on your favorite tech, that sort of thing. We have The Verge pulled up. This is a popular tech blog. Wanted to show you a bunch of different articles, how everything looks with our embedded images, things like that. You get the idea. Let's go ahead, let's grab an article here. You'll see the images, the fonts, the text, the links, the ads. Clear, crisp, easy to see, easy to read, especially if you'll be using this for productivity. And then lastly, maybe you want to use it for shopping, right? Gotta have your favorite online retailer pulled up, taking a look and seeing everything that's going on. Browse your favorite products and items, things like that. No issues at all, whether you want to tackle anything online. Now we're testing out the built-in speakers. We have the volume at 100. We're streaming the song Dripping with Ice by Music Chef. Music Chef is home to stream-safe music for content creators. So give it a listen. Again, 100% max volume. Not much of a noticeable difference turning it up from the default volume of 50 to 100. So it's not going to be rich or full. But if you're sitting in close proximity, you will be able to hear whatever content you're listening to, and that's always important. So they will work, but just think about them as your average computer speaker. They're nothing special or exceptional. So anytime you can always get your own headset, your own built-in speakers, anything like that, a sound bar, you'll be in much better shape. But I always say I'd rather have the speakers and not need them than need the speakers and not have them. But yeah, give it a listen. Not bad. Now it's time for my favorite test. We're testing the input lag on this monitor. Now keep in mind, input lag is different from response time. This has a 5 millisecond response time, and that's going to be the amount of time it takes a pixel to change from one color to another, or one shade of, let's say, gray to another shade. In this case, input lag is going to be the delay or lag between when you issue a command, like from your keyboard or your mouse, and when it's going to be displayed on the display. So let's go ahead. Let's see what results we get in all three of our quadrants. Our lowest value will usually be up at the top here. It's great to see when we're in that 1.x range. So in this case, 1.5 milliseconds. Good to see. Going down a little bit to 1.4, but that 1.4, 1.5 range. Now we're at 9 milliseconds for the middle, 8.9. And at the very bottom, you'll see we're coming in right around 16.2 milliseconds. Right at 16, not bad. Now it's time for gaming, so we're gonna cycle through a couple different games. We'll look at Forza 5, Assassin's Creed, and Borderlands 3, so you can get a feel for how gaming looks on this display. Don't worry, I haven't forgotten about you console gamers out there. We have a PlayStation 5 connected, and I wanted to show you our video output information so you know what you can realistically expect with your PS5 connected to this monitor. You're going to be getting 1920 1080 at 60 Hertz. And for you Xbox users out there, we got the Series X connected. You'll see very similar results, just like the PlayStation 5, 1080p for our resolution, and we'll be at 60 Hertz as well. So now let me share with you my final thoughts in regards to this KOORUI computer monitor. I want you to know that the 24-inch 1080p productivity, budget-friendly monitor space is highly competitive from brands like Scepter, InnoView, AOC, ViewSonic, that's just to name a few brands for you. Typically, they're all very similar in performance. 1080p, usually 75 Hertz. Some have a better stand than others. Some come with or without speakers. Some have more ports versus less ports. But that's really the only differences you're going to see. So it really comes down to price and performance. So with this monitor, you might be more inclined to it because this has 100 Hertz. I haven't seen that in these monitors. Usually they're just 75 Hertz. So if that's important to you, and maybe you're going to do productivity 80% of the time and you want some gaming, then you might appreciate spending a couple extra bucks to get that higher refresh rate. If it's just strictly productivity or you don't really care, it's not that noticeable, you're just doing 1080p 60 Hertz anyways, then those other brands with their monitors will be good enough for you and they'll save you a couple of bucks. So that's really what you have to decide for yourself.